everyone, and welcome back to the Wisdom by Harry YouTube channel. My name is Harry.
And I'm Mary. We're so excited to have you here today for another fascinating episode. You know, it's kind of wild thinking that where your next phone gets made could be, like, right at the heart of a major global discussion.
Oh, absolutely. We're definitely seeing some really interesting stuff happening with a big tech company's iPhone production.
Yeah.
And specifically some, let's say, very direct comments about their whole setup in India.
Okay, right. So for this deep dive, we've looked at a bunch of different reports, articles, trying to really get under the skin of what's going on here. Our goal today really is to try and understand what's actually driving these manufacturing choices for this company, how much political pressure might actually matter, and, well, what it means for the bigger picture, global manufacturing, trade, all that.
Sounds good. So let's maybe start with the current situation. Like, what does iPhone production in India actually look like right now? Because it's become pretty significant, hasn't it?
Significant is putting it mildly. The scale is, frankly, astounding. We're talking about roughly $22 billion worth of iPhones assembled just in India in the 12 months leading up to March 2025.
Wow, 22 billion.
Yep. And that's like a 60% jump compared to the year before. 60%.
That's massive growth.
It really is. And get this, about 1 out of every 5 iPhones sold globally, now made in India.
1 in 5? Okay. That's a seriously substantial chunk of their worldwide output.
Yeah.
And it's not just like one factory doing all this, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, the main assembly partner, Foxconn, does the lion's share, but Tata Group's electronics arm is also a really big player now.
Ah, Tata, right. They bought Wistron's operations, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And Pegatron's too.
Exactly. They control Pegatron's Indian operations now, too. So it's becoming this more integrated network over there.
Right.
And these phones, they're not just staying in India. A huge amount, like $17.4 billion worth in that same fiscal year, was actually exported.
And where are they mostly going?
Primarily the US, interestingly enough. A lot of those India-made iPhones are ending up right here.
And it's not just the basic models anymore, right? I heard they're doing the higher-end ones too.
You heard right. They now assemble the entire iPhone range in India. That includes the Pro models, the ones with all the fancy cameras and tech.
That shows some serious confidence in the manufacturing capability there.
Totally. And it's even expanding beyond phones now. Foxconn has actually started making AirPods in India too, also for export.
Huh. AirPods as well.
Yeah. So all in all, India's probably contributing something like 15% of the company's total annual iPhone output. That's maybe around 40 million phones a year.
Okay, so 40 million units, big export numbers, full range assembly. India is clearly a major hub, which brings us nicely to the recent political comments, doesn't it? Specifically from the former U.S. president.
Precisely. Yeah, things got interesting there. He apparently made it pretty clear in a conversation with the company's CEO that he wasn't happy about them building iPhones in India.
He actually said that? Publicly? Or was reported?
Well, it was reported that he expressed unhappiness publicly, yeah. Basically saying, if you want to take care of India, fine, but you should be building more here in the U.S.
Wow, okay. Direct.
And he also apparently threw in a claim that India had offered the U.S. some kind of zero tariff deal.
A zero tariff deal.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What was the response from India on all this?
Well, an Indian government official weighed in, basically suggesting that, look, for a company like this, the main thing is going to be manufacturing competitiveness.
Right. Makes sense.
And they pointed out that India's become a huge mobile manufacturing hub, largely thanks to their whole Make in India push.
Yeah, that initiative has been pretty central.
So the official's argument was essentially that these huge business decisions are based on global competitiveness, hard numbers, not just political talk.
Which sounds logical for a multinational corporation. It's about the bottom line and strategy usually.
Absolutely. And apparently after these comments came out, Indian officials did talk to the company's executives.
Oh, they did? What was the outcome?
The execs apparently reassured them that, nope, their manufacturing plans, their investment plans in India, all still on track, no changes. India remains a key part of their global supply chain.
So the company seems to be sticking to its guns, basically signaling it's committed to India for the long haul.
Seems that way.
Okay, so that makes you wonder, what were the big reasons they shifted so much production to India in the first place? What's the draw?
Well, several things, really. You can't ignore the impact of the COVID lockdowns in China. That really shook things up and showed the risks of having all your eggs in one basket. manufacturing-wise.
Right, the diversification argument. That's become huge post-COVID.
Definitely. But beyond just spreading the risk, India itself offers some real advantages.
Like what specifically?
Well, for starters, there's access to a large pool of skilled labor. Incredibly, it's cheaper than in many other places. That matters a lot when you're assembling complex electronics.
Labor costs are always a big factor.
Huge. And also, India's been actively working on building up its own supply chain for precision electronics. It's becoming a more capable ecosystem for this kind of high-tech manufacturing.
So the infrastructure and supplier base are catching up.
Yeah, they're developing. And then, of course, there are the government incentives. State subsidies, part of India's big push to become a manufacturing powerhouse, that definitely helps sweeten the deal.
Right, those subsidies can make a big difference, especially when you're talking about massive investments. Okay, so that's the rationale for India. But the former president wants production back in the U.S. Why is that generally seen as, well, unlikely?
Yeah, most experts are pretty skeptical about a major shift back to the U.S. The biggest hurdle by far is just cost. Labor costs here are significantly higher.
How much higher are we talking?
Some estimates put a U.S.-made iPhone potentially costing anywhere from $1,500, maybe even up to $3,000.
$3,000 for an iPhone. Ouch. That would kill demand, surely.
You'd have to think so, yeah. It's just a massive price difference. And it's not only about the direct labor cost on the assembly line, is it?
No, I guess not. What else?
Well, the U.S. manufacturing sector has changed a lot over the decades. Automation, global trade, a lot of those traditional manufacturing jobs just aren't here in the same way. So even though there's this talk about reshoring, bringing manufacturing back, there's a real question mark over whether the U.S. actually has the workforce capacity, the specific skills needed, and the sheer industrial base for something on the scale of iPhone production right now.
It's not like you could just flip a switch and suddenly have millions of skilled electronics assemblers ready to go.
Exactly. It takes time, investment, training. It's complicated.
And haven't previous administrations tried to boost U.S. manufacturing? How did that go?
Yeah, there have been various initiatives, tax breaks, programs. The results have been, let's say, mixed. It's a really tough nut to crack given the global economic realities.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit then. How does all this fit into the broader picture of, like, U.S.-India trade and just global geopolitics?
Well, trade between the U.S. and India is strong, and it's growing. But India does run a trade surplus with the U.S., meaning they sell more to the U.S. than they buy from it. And that surplus has been a point of friction sometimes, politically.
Right, trade imbalances often are.
And remember, the former president did impose tariffs on Chinese goods previously. Even though electronics got a temporary pass, that whole situation definitely pushed companies to think harder about diversifying away from China.
So the trade tensions with China might have indirectly encouraged the move to India.
It seems plausible. And interestingly, some reports noted that shipments from India to the U.S. actually picked up speed after the former president announced plans for those reciprocal tariffs he talked about.
Huh. So maybe companies saw India as a safer bet, potentially avoiding future tariffs.
Could be part of the calculation. It's definitely a way to de-risk from being too reliant on China, especially with all the ongoing trade tensions and geopolitical stuff.
Makes sense from a supply chain resilience perspective.
And, some analysts speculate that the former president's stance might also just be driven by a fundamental desire to see things made in America, almost regardless of the economics.
That sort of made in USA imperative.
Perhaps. Or maybe just a feeling that, these big American companies should be manufacturing domestically, even if the numbers make it really, really hard. It's complex.
Definitely feels like a mix of economics, strategy, and politics all tangled up.
So, yeah, wrapping up this deep dive, what we're seeing is this really significant growth in iPhone manufacturing over in India. It's become a genuinely crucial production hub for them.
Massive scale, full product range.
Right. But then you have this political pressure, particularly from the former U.S. president, pushing for that production to come back stateside, citing trade issues and wanting jobs here.
But the company itself seems pretty dug in on India.
Yeah, they're signaling commitment, pointing to the competitive costs, the developing ecosystem there, the government support, all the business reasons. And most experts agree, bringing it all back to the U.S. faces huge economic hurdles, mostly cost.
So it really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it, for you listening? When you look at these tangled global supply chains, the hard economic facts, and then these political winds blowing, what do you think is the most likely future for making the gadgets we all use?
Yeah, is it going to be the political pressure that ultimately forces hands? Or will the economic realities, the costs, the logistics, will those ultimately win out in deciding where things get made?
It's definitely something to chew on. No easy answers in sight right now.